You know what separates a life quality from one of chaos, the space between stimulus and response. That gap, however small it may seem, is where your power lies. Most people never find it. Something happens, they feel something, and boom, they react, like a machine, like a puppet. But if you can pause, if you can think before you let your emotions take over, you become something rare in this world. A person who's in control themselves. You've been trained since childhood to chase comfort, avoid pain, react quickly. Someone disrespects you, and the blood rises. You feel fear, so you pull back. You feel anger, so you lash out. But that's not power. That's programming. That's your mind running on auto, while emotion grips the wheel. And you can't live like that if you want peace. You can't live like that if you want strength. Real discipline starts in your mind, not in your habits, not in your routine. It starts with what you or yours believe in the moment where your feelings beg you to surrender. When something unexpected hits, an insult, a delay, a failure, you get a choice. Do you become the emotion, or do you observe it? That choice, that's the gap. That's where transformation happens, but only if you're trained to stay in that space. Most people think the first reaction they feel is their truth. They say, "I'm just being real. I'm just being honest." No, you're being untrained. You're being reactive. And that makes you a slave to whatever emotion walks through the door. The truth is, emotion is temporary. What you do with it, that's your identity. The mind has to be taught to pause. And that pause doesn't make you weak. It makes you unstoppable. You uninsult you. Before your ego snaps back, you breathe. You get bad news. Before panic kicks in, you observe. You feel anger build. Before you question it. You don't run from emotions. You see them. You study them. And then you decide what to do. That's not apathy, that's mastery. So how do you train that? You start small. Every day, life will give you chances. The driver who cuts you off. The message that annoys you. The prompt that hits when you promised yourself discipline. Those are reps. Every time you choose to respond instead of react, you lift mental weight. Every time you pause and breathe instead of explode, you rewire your brain. You train your thoughts to lead, not follow. And make no mistake, this isn't about being calm all the time. This is about being deliberate. You can be intense. You can be passionate. But let that intensity be controlled. Because when you stop being dragged by your emotions, you start directing your life. You start living by design, not by default. Your emotions are not enemies. They're messengers. But you're not supposed to hand them the throne. Listen to them, learn from them, but don't obey them blindly. Every emotion is an invitation to pause and reflect, not a command to act. And the more you do that, the stronger the connection becomes between who you are and what you choose to do. Not what you feel like doing, not what the moment pressures you to do, why you've decided is right. That's the beginning of self-rule. That's the foundation of discipline, and it's hard at first. You'll soup. You'll catch yourself mid-reaction. But even in those moments, you're training awareness. You're waking up, and eventually, the chaos that once ruled your mind becomes quiet. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. You're not here to be triggered by every storm that passes. You're here to become the anchor, not the waves, not the wind. The anchor. When your thoughts lead and your emotions follow, you become unshakable. Not because you feel nothing, but because you choose everything. Master the gap, and you'll master yourself. What breaks people isn't what happens to them. It's what they think shouldn't be happening. It's the resistance to what's outside their control. The constant mental war, unions, dominions, delays, rejections, or changes they never signed up for. That resistance, that's suffering. And the worst part, it's optional. You've got to understand something fundamental. The world doesn't owe you alignment with your expectations. It moves on its own time, its own logic, its own rhythm. And if you try to fight that, if you cling to how things you should go, instead of responding to how they are, you're going to exhaust yourself. You'll spend your days chasing shadows and blaming ghosts. You'll burn out not from doing much, but from caring too much about what was never yours to carry. There are two realms in this life, what you can command and what you can't. That's it. And the moment you confuse the two, you suffer. You do your job, but you obsess over whether people respect you. You give your best, but you lose sleep wondering if the outcome will come fast enough. You show up with intention, but then spiral because someone else didn't meet your effort. You see what's happening? You've crossed into a domain that doesn't belong to you. Peace begins the second you step back and say, "This part isn't mine." The opinions of others, not yours. The outcome of your efforts, not yours. The way someone receives your truth, still not yours. What is yours is how you show up, how you carry yourself, how you anchor your energy when anything around you tries to pull you in 10 different directions. We've been trained to think control is power, but real power comes from knowing what you don't need to control. That's where detachment starts. And listen, don't confuse detachment with indifference. It's not about caring less. It's not caring correctly. Caring about the effort, not the applause. Caring about your input, not their reaction. Caring about your growth, not their validation. The mind is a battlefield, and every time you cling to what isn't yours to command, you give away ground, you give away peace, you give away strength. Someone criticizes you unfairly. You don't need to chase them with justification. The truth doesn't need to beg, it just stands. You were rejected despite your effort. Let it go. If you did your part, that moment has served its purpose. You don't need to haunt it looking for closure. Detach, not because you're weak, but because you're too strong to waste your energy on battles that don't build you. You want to hack your mind, then free it from the burden to control the uncontrollable. You'll see clearly for the first time. You'll be able to focus again. You'll feel a kind of freedom that doesn't come from escaping life, but from engaging with it wisely. And yes, people will misunderstand you. They'll think detachment is cold. Let them. That's not your burden either. Because once you see the trap of needing everyone to agree, needing everything to go your way, you'll see how deeply it robs you of your power. The less you need things to be a certain way, the more you can just act, move, grow, and live. So stop asking, why did this happen? And start asking, what can I do with it? That's a mind that doesn't break under pressure. It bends, adapts, evolves. You'll never force the world to be fair. But you can always show up as someone who doesn't need it to be. You don't need the path to be smooth to keep walking. You don't need applause to keep building. You don't need everyone to understand your purpose to live it fully. That kind of mental clarity, that's not just discipline, that's freedom. Because the man who knows what is and isn't his to command is never truly shaken. Even when the storm comes, he stews, that doesn't fight the rain. He keeps moving through it, eyes forward, head high, heart unchained. Let go of what was never yours, and you'll finally have space to master what is. Most people flinch when life throws up a wall. They think the obstacle means stop. They think the pain is a punishment, the delay is a denial, the setback is a signal to give up. But that mindset, that instinct to recoil, to freeze, to complain, is exactly what keeps them trapped. The truth is, the obstacle is the path. It's not in your way. It is the way. But only if you stop seeing it as a curse and start using it as a classroom. Every challenge is a mirror. It reflects your current limits, not to shame you, but to show you exactly where to grow. That's what most people miss. They think comfort is the goal, that ease is the reward. But comfort doesn't teach. Ease doesn't test. Growth comes wrapped in frustration, wrapped in struggle, wrapped in moments where you want to quit. That's the training ground. That's the forge. You get stronger by pushing into resistance, mentally, physically, spiritually. You don't grow when it's convenient. You grow when it's hard and you still keep going. When it's uncertain and you still step forward. When the results don't come fast enough, but you stay consistent anyway. That is how you turn an obstacle into a weapon. You have to stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this trying to build in me?" That shift changes everything. That's the difference between staying stuck and rising stronger. The obstacle wants to see who you become when things stop going your way. Will you fold, or will you focus? See, discipline doesn't come from ease. It comes from endurance. Patience isn't developed when things go right. It's born when you sit in delay without losing your direction. Resilience isn't inherited. It's carved out of every moment you kept standing when life tried to knock you down. That's what these obstacles are, repetitions for the mind. Just like training the body, resistance builds strength if you use it correctly. You don't grow just because something was hard. You grow because you refused to back down. Because you looked the obstacle in the eye and said, "I'm still here." Pain becomes fuel when you decide to use it that way. Failure becomes a teacher when you stop making it personal. Delays become preparation when you learn to wait without weakening. Too many people waste their energy cursing the obstacle instead of mastering themselves through it. But you're not here to complain. You're here to transform. You're not here to avoid struggle. You're here to sharpen yourself against it. The obstacle is going to demand more of you, and that's exactly the point. It's going to reveal how badly you want the goal, not just when it's easy to want it, but when everything seems stacked against you. That's when your mind gets forged. That's when clarity is born, not from comfort, but from chaos. You've got to develop a mindset that welcomes pressure, not because it feels good, but because pressure purifies. It burns away the false urgency, the cheap goals, the empty distractions. It leaves behind only what matters. And you start to realize that most people don't lack opportunity. They lack mental conditioning. The moment it gets hard, they tap out, they make excuses, they lower their standards to match their mood. But you use the obstacle, you use the doubt, you use the pain, not to spiral, but to sharpen. You see resistance and think perfect. Time to get better. You see failure and say, good. Feedback. You see delay and decide, even more time to prepare. That's the mindset of someone who won't be broken. That's what separates the reactive from the relentless. That's what builds real, unshakable discipline. Not a perfect environment, but your refusal to let your environment define you. So no, you don't need the obstacle to disappear. You need it to do its job, to shape you, to stretch you, to teach you. You need it because it exposes where you've been coasting. It challenges you to either evolve or repeat the same weak patterns. And if you're honest, most of your growth didn't come when life went your way. It came when you had to make your own way. You can keep wishing for an easier life, or you can choose to become a stronger human. One uses hope, the other uses hardship, and only one of them will get you free. Face the obstacle, train through it, and you'll come out the other side with something no one can take. Inner strength that was earned, not given. You can't build anything solid on top of noise. Not a life, not clarity, not discipline, and definitely not peace. Most people think the world is loud, but what's actually loud is their mind. The external chaos is only one part. What ruins people is the internal chatter, the second guessing, the overthinking, the constant mental commentary running on loop. That voice that tells you're not ready, you're not enough, or that everything has to be perfect before you begin. That voice is not truth, it's noise. And if you don't learn to master that voice, it will master you. Every day we wake up and get pulled into the noise. Notifications, opinions, comparisons, doubts. But the most dangerous noise isn't out there, it's in here. The mental scripts we accepted without question. Scripts from childhood. Scripts from failure. Scripts from fear. You won't make it. This isn't for you. What if they don't approve? What if you fall flat? These are echoes, not facts. They sound like you, but they're not you. And until you learn to separate the two, you'll live your life obeying a voice that was never yours to begin with. The mind is powerful, but it's not always your ally. Not by default. It has to be trained, directed, conditioned, otherwise it runs wild. It grabs onto fear like it's truth. It loops through imaginary scenarios like they're happening now. It turns hesitation into paralysis. And most people never notice because the noise feels normal. But normal isn't the goal. Clarity is, strength is, freedom is. And freedom starts when you create enough stillness to hear your real thoughts. Not just the ones fear keeps feeding you. Silence isn't empty. It's where the real work happens. You don't need another voice telling you what to do. You need to learn to listen. To the one voice that matters, the one inside you, beneath the noise, beneath the doubt, beneath the chaos. That voice doesn't yell. It's quiet, which is why the noise has to go. You can't hear wisdom when you're in reaction. You can't hear truth when you're trapped in narrative. Think about this. Every time you've panicked, it started with a thought. Every time you backed away from something important, it started with a doubt. The outer behavior always begins with inner dialogue. If your mind is cluttered, your decisions will be. If your mind is reactive, your emotions will be. And if your mind is ruled by fear, so will be your life. But the good news, you can rewrite the script. You can rewire the response. You can become the one who notices the noise, who pauses before reacting, who chooses their next move with power instead of panic. That's mastery. Not silence on the outside, but silence within. A stillness that allows you to move through storms with a steady mind. A stillness that lets you focus when others flinch. A stillness that doesn't need permission to act with purpose. To get there, you don't need a perfect life. You need practice. Practice noticing the thought before it drags you. Practice creating space before the emotion takes control. Practice questioning the belief before it defines you. You start small. You start where you are. But you stay consistent, because that's how the noise loses its grip. Not all at once, but one quiet moment at a time. When the world shouts at you, stay calm. When the voices say you're behind, stay centered. When fear tries to narrate your future, remember it only wins if you give it the mic. You don't owe fear a reply. You don't weed out a seat at the table. You don't owe the noise anything. But you do owe yourself clarity. You owe yourself peace. You owe yourselves the discipline of mastering the voice inside. And once you do, something incredible happens. You stop being ruled by moods. You being shaken by delay. You stop being driven by fear of failure. You act because it's time. Not because it feels right. You move because you've chosen to. Not because the world gave you permission. That's when everything changes. The strongest minds aren't the loudest. They're the quietest. Not because they have nothing to say, but because they've already listened. And they've decided. That's the power of mastering the inner dialogue. It's not about muting the world. It's about not letting the world override what you already know. Silence the noise, hear yourself clearly, and then act without hesitation. We live in a world obsessed with comfort food, comfort zones, comfortable lies we tell ourselves to avoid uncomfortable truths. But here's the reality. Comfort is so quidu killer. It doesn't stab, it seduces. It whispers, "Stay right here. You're fine. You don't need to try harder. Don't go out there. Don't stretch. Don't suffer." And little by little, that voice turns you soft, not just physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. You stop growing because you stop being tested. But there's a different path, one that the strong choose, one that rewires your brain to be unshakable. It's not the easy way. It's the way of voluntary discomfort, doing the hard thing on purpose, stepping into pain, not because you enjoy suffering, but because you know what it forges in you. You know what it builds, see? Resilience, clarity, self-respect. You don't wait for cows to hit to find your strength. You train in advance. You build the armor before the war. Most people want the benefits of discipline, but not the discomfort that comes with it. They want confidence without facing fear. They want peace without pressure. But real inner security doesn't come from avoiding stress. It comes from facing it willingly, over and over, until it no longer controls you. Every time you choose discomfort, waking up early, pushing past excuses, delaying gratification, saying no, when it's easier to size, you teach your brain something powerful, that you are not at the mercy of comfort. You are not fragile. You can endure. You can grow. You can lead yourself. Think about this. When have you grown the most in your life? Was it during easy times, when everything was going your way? Or was it during the grind, when you were tested, when you had to dig deep and face something hard? Those seasons were painful, yes, but they were also clarifying. They stripped away illusions. They showed you what you're made of, and the beauty of voluntary discomfort is that you don't have to wait for life to knock you down to access that. You knock on the door yourself. You wake yourself up. You go cold when others chase warmth. You fast when others indulge. You walk when others ride. You choose discipline when others run to dopamine. And in doing that, you gain something no comfort can ever give you. Self-trust. Real earned, unshakable trust in your ability to lead yourself through anything. Because if you've already trained yourself to do hard things by choice, when life throws hardship at you, you don't crumble. You respond. You don't panic. You pivot. You don't beg for ease. You remember who you are. Voluntary discomfort isn't about punishment. It's about preparation. You're not breaking yourself down. You're building yourself up. You're teaching your nervous system that pain is not always danger, that failure is not fatal, that challenge is not chaos. You're creating a brain that doesn't flinch every time reality gets rough. And that is power. Not temporary, not motivational, but sustainable. Reliable, real. The world is uncertain. No one can promise ease. But when you've conditioned your mind and body through daily discipline, through repeated exposures to effort, fatigue, resistance, temptation, you develop a calm that can't be faked, because you know you've been through the fire and you came out better. You didn't run, you didn't hide, you didn't fold, you stepped into it. And now discomfort doesn't scare you. You respect it, but you don't bow to it. The difference between those who thrive and those who break isn't intelligence or talent. It's this: their relationship with discomfort. The ones who grow learn to love the feeling of doing something they didn't think they could do. They associate pain with progress. They associate resistance with fury. And they build a mind that sees obstacles as invitations to step further into power. You can't build inner security by reading about it. You build it by living it, by practicing discomfort, by seeking it, not avoiding it. Every day, in small ways. Skip the easy path, carry the heavy thing, sit in the silence, delay the reward, confront the truth, refuse the shortcut. Each of those choices is a rep, and each rep forges a stronger mind. The more voluntarily you suffer now, the less you suffer when it's not voluntary, because by then you'll already be prepared. You'll already be capable. You'll already be the kind of person who who doesn't just survive pressure, but transforms through it. Discomfort is a teacher. Choose to sit in its classroom before life forces you to. Most people live by how they feel in the moment. They do what they want when they feel like it. If they're tired, they rest. If they're irritated, they lash out. If they're unmotivated, they delay. That's not a life guided by strength. It's a life dragged around by mood swings, by emotion, by impulses. That's the life of a leaf blowing in the wind, not a person rooted in something unshakable. If you want to rewire your mind the way the Stoics did, you must make a fundamental shift. You must stop obeying your moods and start obeying your values. Your values are your internal compass. They don't shift with the weather. They don't rise and fall with your emotions. They are chosen. They are earned. They are built. And they must be lived even when they are inconvenient, even when you don't feel like it. Especially when you don't feel like it. That's where the rewiring happens. That's where the real discipline begins. Think about it. Anyone can act calm when they feel calm. Anyone can show up when they're motivated. Anyone can be kind when life is going their way. But that's not mastery. That's not strength. That's just comfort in disguise. True discipline is choosing to do what's right when every part of you wants to do what's easy. It's holding to your principles when they cost you. It's living with intention when distraction is calling. That's how the mind gets 4G in 14 powerful. Something unshakable. We live in a world that glorifies emotional expression and instant gratification. You're told to follow your heart, to do what feels right, as if that's the ultimate measure of truth. But your feelings lie. Your emotions exaggerate. Your mousetracturate. If you build your life around them, you will always be unstable. You'll betray your goals. You'll make excuses for your anus. You'll let yourself off the hook when it matters most. But if you live by your values, by your core beliefs, by your code, you give yourself something your moods can never offer: direction, stability, and purpose. You can be tired and still be consistent. You can be angry and still be respectful. You can be discouraged and still move forward. That's the strength of a rewired mind. It's not emotionless. It's trained. It's not numb. It's grounded. Start small. Don't try to conquer every emotion at once. Just notice the moments where your mood pulls you in one direction and ask yourself, what would my values do here? That one question can interrupt the pattern. It creates space, and in that space you make a choice, not a reaction. That's power. That's control. That's living by design, not default. When your alarm goes off and your body wants to sleep, but your value is discipline, you get up. When someone disrespects you and your ego wants to fight back, but your value is composure, you stay centered. When results are slow and your spirit wants to quit, but your value is perseverance, you keep moving. You don't do these things because you feel like it. You do them because you said you would, because you decided to live that way. That decision becomes your freedom. That commitment becomes your power. The truth is, no one rises in life by doing what they feel like. They rise by doing what they've decided is right. That's what separates the ordinary from the exceptional. The mood-driven live on emotional autopilot. The value-driven rewrite the program. They build habits that outlast motivation. They create routines that don't rely on inspiration. They act from principle, not preference. And in doing so, they become leaders, not just of others, but of themselves. That's what this is really about: ruling yourself, guiding your own mind, being your own master, not letting life or mood or chubbers dictate who you are. So when the storm hits, when the emotion surges, when the voice in your head says, "Not today, it's too much," you answer with clarity, "I don't do this because it feels good. I do this because it's who I am." That's how you rewire your brain. That's how you win the war within.